Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lorraine Zamora, President.
Here,
Thought they could hear me.
Yeah, and you're gonna basically eat it.
Is that better? I'm Lorraine Zamora, President of Three Parks Independent Democrats, and on behalf of Three Parks, I welcome you and thank you all for coming today. We are here to pay tribute to a very special person, our beloved Cynthia Louise Doty. Here today are the family members, the elected officials, the judges, the district leaders, the community leaders, the community organizations, and professional colleagues whom Cynthia cherished and admired. In different ways, Cynthia was special to every one of us in this room. As family, friend, neighbor, colleague, board member, community activist, political campaigner, district leader, and Manhattan Deputy Chief Clerk at the New York City Board of Elections. But in every way, Cynthia was an inspiration to all of us. I know Cynthia would be pleased by the wonderful array of people here today who are about to speak and perform in her remembrance. They're listed in the program in order of appearance. Again, on behalf of Three Parks, I thank you, all of you, for being here with us today, and I hope everyone will stay for the reception that awaits you at the end of the program. And now it's my real pleasure to introduce you to our Master of Ceremony, Three Parks State Committee member and District Leader, Daniel Marks Cohen.
Tiny housekeeping matter, sorry. Please silence your cell phones if you haven't already. And the bathrooms are in the back to the left. Thank you, Lorraine. I was elected in June as the male district leader for the 69th AD. Cynthia Doty was my co-leader and a great soul. I had the good fortune of knowing her and politically collaborating with her for more than 30 years. Fellow West Siders, we encountered each other at a variety of civic and political meetings every week, but our primary interaction was through Three Parks Independent Democrats. Briefly, I want to share with you what happened. Cynthia had fallen and hit her head while at home over a weekend in early July. And when she failed to show up at work the following Monday morning at the Board of Elections, some colleagues prompted a wellness check on her. She was discovered and taken to the emergency room at Mount Sinai Hospital on the Upper East Side. I was alerted to her being unwell by a fellow club member, Teresa Cantor, and I arrived at the hospital shortly after she was admitted. She was treated with kindness and professionalism, and an early prognosis from the doctors that she might recover later took a turn for the worse, and Cynthia died a week later, Monday evening, July 14th. She was continuously attended to by her family, and Cynthia was never in any pain, and her passing was swift. I had hoped that Cynthia and I would have had time to talk about my new role as district leader and learn from her experience, and I am saddened to lose her as a political ally, a teacher, and a friend. Thank you for coming today. Hug the ones you love, and let's look out for each other. We're first going to hear from Warren and Nan Doty, who are the brother and sister-in-law of Cynthia Doty. Please join us.
Good afternoon. I'm Warren, Cynthia's brother. Ed, Cynthia's brother, is in the front row over here. Our family is here, Cynthia's nieces and nephews, grandnieces and grandnephews in these first 3 or 4 rows. Cynthia was clearly beloved when she was born in Philadelphia with 2 older brothers already in school. Me, Warren, 7 years older, and Edward, 10 years older. The only girl, she was showered with attention and love by all of us. Just before Cynthia was born, her father ran for Congress, a Democrat in a solidly Republican district, and came close to winning, quite an accomplishment. She grew up with campaign posters of him still saved and tucked around the house, a reminder of his achievement, and when his district did finally turn heavily Democratic several years later, and he became a judge. She grew up understanding that sometimes you need to buck the tide in the present to make a difference in the future. As a very little girl, Cynthia was shy and sheltered, even as her parents and brothers led outgoing lives in the community. I recall that her childhood introduction to politics was very reserved. She was riding in the elevator in Philadelphia City Hall with her father, the judge, introducing her to everyone. This kind of attention made Cynthia very uncomfortable. She lowered her head, looking down, and would not say a single word, much to our father's dismay. Our mother loved Democratic dinner events and often wanted Cynthia to join her at the round table, while Cynthia preferred to stay home. Well, she certainly grew out of that. Cynthia loved her summers at the Jersey Shore. Growing up, all her life she found solace and joy in the broad expanse of ocean as a sailor, as a swimmer, and as a beachcomber, collecting treasures along the shore. Early on in her life, Cynthia found joy in structuring her days with goals, activities, accomplishments, and friendships.
Girl Scouts. Girl Scouts. Girl Scouts and badges were serious business to Cynthia, and she still had her badges all on display in her apartment. Identifying an interest and learning more about it, then achieving the needed objectives to earn a badge, and add it to her collection and look at them, satisfied with all the things she had accomplished as a young girl. When she and her best friend Ruth got lost wandering through the woods one day in New Hampshire, Ruth remembers them laughing, finding lost being excruciatingly funny, until finally they did recall their Girl Scout training and did find their way out. They thought that was hysterically funny, that they were trained and still needed to remember that. Cynthia met Ruth at school in 7th grade, and they became fast friends for life. Even as Ruth's life expanded with marriage and children, while Cynthia's career in theater and politics engaged her attention. Cynthia's Uncle Clay was a dairy farmer, her aunt's husband. And one day, when Cynthia was a teen, we all visited and enjoyed a big family dinner together at their farm. And partway through dinner, Clay asked what we thought of Cynthia. But he wasn't talking about our Cynthia. He was talking about the cow that we were eating, that he had named after her and especially served it for her. There were a lot of leftovers that night, and we are not certain, but we think Cynthia might have become a vegetarian shortly after that dinner together. Cynthia attended Philadelphia High School for Girls, which is a very special public high school in Philadelphia. It's an exam school for gifted girls, where she excelled at absolutely all levels, including band, sports, captain of the hockey team, president of the Athletic Association, while also achieving high honors every semester. Very, very challenging. She graduated summa cum laude. She achieved Dean's List every semester at Emerson College in both undergraduate and graduate school.
Cynthia valued connection with others and kept in touch with friends from her elementary, high school, and college experiences, along with welcoming her own expanding family of nieces and nephews, and then later welcoming the great nieces and nephews all here today. Cynthia was an achiever. She assisted Zach Brown with costume creations in her Broadway theater work. Cynthia moved on to community constituent services, recycling, and political campaigns, including her huge collection of campaign buttons. Lastly, elections became her mission later in life. She and everyone else came to understand that newly appreciate the importance of clean and fairly counted elections. We found on Cynthia's calendar for the last week of her life this quote: "Courage is the power to let go of the familiar." I'll repeat that. Courage is the power to let go of the familiar. Many, if not most of our family, have known Cynthia all our lives. We miss her already in the structure and foundation of our lives. She's always been there for us, whether we saw her a lot or a little. She was always there, available for an avid political discussion, a trip to the flower show, a trip to the shore, going out to eat, or a walk in Riverside Park. She is still with us in our memories of her love and her connection with our own lives. We treasure this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Warren, and thank you, Nan. I believe that U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer is vamping until ready, or he is in the building, like Elvis. We're now going to hear from the Senate Majority Leader, U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer.
I just told Warren and Cynthia's family that I just love that lady. Who didn't? Who didn't? I want to take a moment to acknowledge Cynthia's family, her brothers, Warren and Ed, her sisters-in-law, Nan, Meg, Mary, so many nieces and nephews, and other grandnieces, grandnephews, John, who came here. I also want to, this church is full, it's not a surprise. I want to acknowledge Cynthia's many friends, her colleagues, her fellow advocates, fellow fighters for a better city, nation, country, and world who are gathered here today. And I offer my deepest and most heartfelt condolences on Cynthia's passing to all of you. What a shock it was to all of us. Somebody so vibrant, so engaged, so alive, so active in this community, suddenly, like that, gone. I wasn't sure I'd be able to be here in person today, but came up after we dealt with the shutdown mess caused by those MAGA Republicans. I think Jerry is here on his way dealing with it in the House as we did in the Senate. And I'm happy to say that we kept the government funded while reversing every single one of the extreme 30% cuts and vicious poison pill riders, anti-women, anti-gay, anti-LGBTQ riders they put in there. and they proposed. After trying to take our government hostage, Republicans won nothing. Nothing. But they still caused plenty of trouble with their antics, and I am sure Cynthia is looking down now and shaking her head at this manufactured crisis caused by the political cravenness and fickleness and incompetence, the mean selfishness that she opposed every single day of her life in whatever activity she undertook. As was mentioned, Cynthia was born in the political arena. Her parents, Ethan and Beatrice, were active in Democratic politics in Philadelphia. Cynthia wasted no time following their example, became a Girl Scout, co-chaired the Racial Justice Committee at college, leading her fellow students to Washington to protest the Vietnam War. That's how I got started in politics too, and we would exchange reminiscences about that picketing and protesting and the people we actually lost in Vietnam. She knew and I knew. We both shared that college activity. I wouldn't call it extracurricular because it was a passion for her and for me. And how lucky we are, we in New York, sorry Pennsylvanians, that after graduating college, this bright young woman with a passion for life found her way to New York City. She was a person of so many interests. She played field hockey growing up. She was a member of the school orchestra. As mentioned, she was interested in community farming and birding. Professionally speaking, she had a lengthy and very illustrious career as a costume and set designer that took her all across the world and worked on major film sets and theater productions on Broadway and Lincoln Center, at the Kennedy Center down in DC. Cynthia could have remained focused on her career, and nobody could have begrudged her a thing. But when Cynthia was confronted so directly and personally by the deadliness of the HIV/AIDS crisis, she committed herself to public service. Isn't that Cynthia? She had a great career with all these plaudits, but when she saw the suffering and callousness of our society, when it came to those who had HIV/AIDS, she knew she had to do everything she could, including giving up a career to do it. And as we all know, when she was committed to something, she put every fiber of her being into it. She worked for elected officials, ran for office herself, was a district leader for the 69th Assembly District since 1993? They're both a very long time ago these days. And was a deputy clerk at the Board of Elections. She campaigned and got out the vote for local and statewide candidates, myself included. She was active in more community organizations, block associations, preservation societies, sanitation coalitions than anyone could ever count. I was privileged to meet Cynthia years ago. I was running against Al D'Amato. No one thought I could beat him. And I met this woman at 3 parks. By the way, it took me years, and she would coach me to remember what were the 3 parks. There was Central and Riverside, but then there was some other park. I put Strauss up there, and she would always laugh that I could never remember the 3rd park. But the minute I met her, I saw I was facing an uphill fight, and she came to encourage me. And the empathy, but more than anything, the bottomless, quiet, but deep strength she had when she talked to you. You knew it came right from the heart. You knew she had thought it through. And she really, every time I came to 3 parks or another event, and she'd come over to me and encourage me and say, "We're going to beat this son of a gun," it gave me strength. And she did that not just for me, but for thousands of people in different walks of life. So many years later, all of us can say without question, the Upper West Side, all of New York City are better places thanks to her decades of tireless work. She left a mark that will last long after she's gone. What better legacy can there be? In the Senate this week, we're mourning the passing of another powerful woman who left her mark and broke ceilings, Dianne Feinstein. I don't know if Dianne and Cynthia ever crossed paths, but I do know that they were kindred spirits, strong women at a time, you still have that time, when women are not treated equally, who never took no for an answer when the question was how to improve the world around them by fixing hard and complicated problems. They shared that in common. I'm sure they're already a duo to be reckoned with in the afterlife, probably at some community meeting somewhere in heaven, pestering some poor soul to fix a broken traffic light. I'll miss seeing Cynthia at the 3 parks and other community meetings, but I know her spirit will reside in every person and street block of this community. So let us all honor Cynthia's memory by continuing to fight for the progressive principles she defended her entire life, safeguarding the rights and dignity of the downtrodden and least privileged, making sure the wealthy pay their fair share so we can invest in healthcare and housing, transit, parks, and so many other public goods, protecting our environment against the ravages of climate change, defending our very democracy against those who seek to restrict the right to vote, undermine our electoral system, and try to turn our country into an authoritarian place. We face so many challenges in Cynthia's absence, but with her example, guiding and inspiring, there is nothing we cannot achieve. Thank you. God bless her memory.
Thank you, Senator. We were going through some of Cynthia's things, and it turns out that we found a plaque that we had meant to give to you in 2021 when we honored you for your service. It stayed in her apartment. Apparently, I think she was responsible for sending it to you, and that might have gone overlooked. I just want to briefly say the sentences to honor Chuck Schumer in recognition for his leadership in restoring democratic control and sanity in the United States Senate. I think that is still true 2 years later. Thank you, Senator, and this is for you. We're now going to hear from Gerald Nadler, Congressman for the Upper West Side. Good.
Good afternoon. I'm so pleased to be with all of you in person. As you know, the extremist MAGA Republicans were threatening to shut down the government if we didn't bow to their demands. And there was a very good chance that they would have shut the government down and forced me to remain in Washington. I was nearly certain that I wouldn't be able to make it here today, so I made a film whatever they call it these days, electronically presentation for you, but perhaps due to some divine intervention, perhaps by Cynthia, McCarthy put a bipartisan bill on the floor that the majority of Democrats and Republicans could support, and we were able to avert a government shutdown. Cynthia would have loved all the drama of the last few days. And maybe, just maybe, she was pulling strings from above to ensure that the government stayed open, and we could all be here together to celebrate her life in person. If that was you, Cynthia, then thank you. Cynthia was a tireless advocate for the many causes she believed in, a true leader in democratic politics who fought for peace, equality, social justice, and so much more. Cynthia's lifetime of service to our community here on the Upper West Side has left behind a legacy that we should all aspire and live up to. I'm pleased to share that I've submitted the following remarks to the congressional record so that Cynthia will always be remembered. I first met Cynthia over 30 years ago working in local Democratic politics. I worked alongside her former boss, Assemblymember Ed Sullivan, in the New York State Assembly. Cynthia served 9 years as his legislative associate and special assistant. In Albany, she drafted legislation and negotiated budgets. In the district, she advocated on behalf of thousands of constituents to protect their housing and deliver needed services. Cynthia was a major force in the 3 Parks Independent Democrats political club and served as its president and as district leader. Cynthia was kind, honest, and skilled at her position, and was both respected and beloved within the community. She was extremely reliable. If she said she was going to get something done, it would always get done. And she was a gracious host to me and others who visited her club frequently. Under her leadership, the club members were very active in gathering petition signatures and mobilizing the vote in our area for countless elected officials at all levels of politics, from district leader to congressman, Charlie Rangel, myself, Adriano Espaillat, senator, and president. Cynthia and her club did the work to help get Democrats elected across the country, not just in New York, and organized bus trips to Connecticut and Pennsylvania to get out the votes. She ran phone banks that reached voters across the country and was always finding ways for volunteers to get involved and fight for causes they believed in. She was my guest at both inaugurations of President Obama and subsequently attended marches and protests on the National Mall in Washington. She opposed the war in Iraq, supported the women's right to choose, and defended LGBTQ+ rights. She supported community farms and was a member of a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture, where she enjoyed volunteering. Cynthia was born into a Democratic family in 1951, where she developed her progressive principles and a deep commitment to public service. Cynthia went to public school, co-chaired the Racial Justice Committee at her college, and led several college groups to Washington to protest the Vietnam War. Her parents were active in politics. Her father, Ethan Allen Doty, served as a judge for over 40 years and was a leading figure in the Democratic reform movement. Her mother, Beatrice Graham Doty, was a Democratic State Committeewoman. Her brothers, Ed Doty and Warren Doty, both served in elected positions in Pelham, New York, and Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, respectively. I'd be remiss if I did not also mention her beloved nephew, John Doty, who followed Cynthia's legacy of service to New Yorkers, having been my longest serving staff member, that is being now my longest serving staff member, going on nearly 30 years. It is entirely fitting that she ended her political career as the Manhattan Deputy Chief Clerk at the New York City Board of Elections. In that role, she oversaw a vast operation of election officials responsible for processing ballots during several tumultuous changes in New York State election law. She oversaw early voting that allowed people to vote before Election Day, and efforts to ensure absentee or vote by mail ballots were processed properly during the COVID-19 pandemic. She helped ensure polling places were open and accessible, and people knew where and how to vote. In perhaps her last major election, she was involved in processing my own re-election in a contested primary in Manhattan last year. She was the consummate professional and made sure the election was carried out without controversy. Too often, we take for granted the work people like Cynthia do to help our communities, but we would be remiss if we did not honor and thank her and her team for a job well done. I enjoyed working with Cynthia over the past 30 to 40 years. Her contributions to her community knew no end. The people of Manhattan's Upper West Side will miss her deeply, but know that we will continue to carry out the work that she cared about so deeply. We will continue to work for social justice, environmental justice, women's rights, LGBTQ+ rights, and health care for all. I thank her for her years of service. May she rest in peace, and may her memory be a blessing to us all.
Thank you, Congressman. We are also now joined by former Congressman Charlie Rangel.
I would actually look forward to campaigning with her. I could be in a bus with her, on a sidewalk with her, and truly enjoy it. Inez Dickens and I always took pride in how we used to get the club vote out. But quite frankly, I guess, it never was fun. She made campaigns fun. And to be honest with you, there was this expression about having a velvet glove and a steel hand in it. With all of my charm, she wanted to know what the legislative agenda was. And how was she to explain my vote on any given issue? And I would smile because that perennial smile that I normally would get would never be there when she was having the meetings. And while I would like to believe that she was protecting me against people in the club that were really not that pleasant to deal with, I always knew that she was so concerned. As I look and see this wonderful audience, I feel so proud that they allowed me to share, Lonnie, what we all felt about her, but never really had a chance to talk that much about her. It was almost that we looked forward to something going on so that we could come over and pass out some literature, or to get on a loudspeaker, or to be with her, or to laugh with her, to joke with her. And so I am honored because I do know that each and every one of you have such a beautiful story that you won't get a chance to speak about today. But that will be your story. And as I go to my seat, I do hope that you take the time that I take to get to my seat to think of your story, that you will not be able to use a mic, but I am confident that it's a beautiful story that would allow us, no matter what campaign we get involved in, we would wonder how would Cynthia want us to handle it. Thank you, God, for allowing me to have such an exciting and wonderful political career that allowed me to get to know, to love, and to care for Cynthia.